We start in Turkey, where President Tayyip Erdogan has declared a state of emergency in the 10 provinces affected by yesterday's devastating earthquakes in the southern part of the country. Erdogan says 70 countries have offered help with search and rescue operations. Hotels in the tourism hub of Antalya will be opened up to house people impacted by the quakes. At the same time, the United Nations Children's Agency says the quakes and aftershocks that destroyed scores of buildings may have killed thousands of children. Overwhelmed rescuers struggled to save people trapped under the rubble, with despair mounting and the scale of the disaster hampering relief efforts. Now, the magnitude 7.8 quake, Turkey's deadliest since 1939, hit early on Monday, toppling thousands of buildings, including many apartment blocks, wrecking hospitals and leaving thousands of people injured or homeless in Turkish and Syrian cities. Over 2,000 personnel from 65 countries are helping in search and rescue operations. While South African humanitarian organizations, the Al-Imdaad Association has dispatched emergency aid to those affected by the earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria. More than 5,000 people have died. The foundation's international project coordinator, Qari Ziyaad Patel, joins us via Zoom now. Qari, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, what kind of aid are you offering to the people in Turkey and Syria, following that deadly earthquake? We now understand that death toll continues to rise. Now more than 5,000 people have died, unfortunately.
So let me first start off by saying that this is undoubtedly a humanitarian catastrophe. We as humanitarians, we only see a disaster of this magnitude maybe once in a decade, and to see this unfold right before us, it's something which really saddens the heart. And there are so many dynamics to this disaster. So in order to understand how we're going to filter aid and what aid we're going to facilitate to those that have been affected, we need to understand the dynamics of the disaster. This area, which has been affected by this twin earthquakes, because two earthquakes happened in the span of 12 hours, with so many aftershocks between them, this is one of the most densely populated places on Earth. That's the first thing. The Turkish host community, they host literally thousands of Syrian refugees. Literally thousands of Syrian refugees reside in this part of the world. Thirdly, this earthquake has affected both sides, Turkey as well as Syria. Yes, we have logistical challenges, and to top it up, they are predicting heavy snowfall. I just returned from the region, and we are back en route back to the region. Is presently bitterly cold. And that's the reason why at the Al-Imdaad Foundation, every year on end, this is part of our annual project where we deliver and we hand out winter warmers to those that are staying in makeshift shelters and in refugee camps and IDP camps, etc. So we're going to continue to facilitate a much needed, essential emergency relief aid, especially in the form of shelter, because right now over 6,000 buildings have come down. I just want our viewers out there to comprehend this. Over 6,000 apartment blocks, buildings have collapsed. So that gives us some indication as to how many families are now going to be displaced, how many families are homeless, and shelter has become the need of the hour. And of course, yes, with that goes clean water, warm food, cooked meals, hot meals, and so many other basic necessities.
Now, we obviously heard, earlier that more than 70 nations have actually offered aid, to the two countries. What are some of the challenges you are anticipating as you go and assist, yourselves as an organization? And I mean, you've mentioned several impediments like the bitter cold that we've also seeing on our television screens. And of course, many people still trapped under those buildings that you've been describing.
So yes, the fact of the matter is, as we both are communicating and speaking, there are people gasping for air under the rubble, waiting to be rescued. And it's really a very sad situation indeed. For us, the logistical challenges which we are experiencing are first and foremost most of the airports in the region have now been closed. In fact, one of the main airports, the entire runway has been cracked in the middle. So we're having serious logistical challenges to filter in much needed aid, to such an extent that this morning we even received reports of looting taking place. And this is quite natural. You know, when resources are scarce, the human survival instinct kicks in, and people are now literally going out there and trying to scavenge for any kind of basic resources which they can get to get them going for the day or for the next few days. So we have a situation at hand which is extremely dire. It's extremely dire. And for us as humanitarian agencies, we are finding a lot of logistical challenges to get personnel into the area, number one. And number two, to also filter in much needed relief aid from other parts of Turkey into this region. We are quite hopeful that the Turkish authorities are working round the clock to open up these humanitarian routes into this region so that we can start filtering aid as soon as possible, very quickly, very swiftly. Because right now, time is of the essence. The longer we take to respond, people die. The longer we take to respond, people suffer. So right now, this is the top of our list to get aid, filter in aid as soon as possible. Yes, we also thank the Almighty that over the last few days, we have been conducting hot meals, distributions for those people that have been left homeless. So distributions are continuing, but we really need to up our game because so many thousands of people have become homeless. If so many people are passed on, imagine how many people still need shelter right now.
And when we talk about the magnitude of this earthquake, I mean, we heard that it is, one of the most severest, the second severest in the country. And of course, you talked about two earthquakes happening almost simultaneously. And then those aftershocks, we're hearing in the region of over 100 aftershocks. How safe do you think rescuers are at the moment, under these circumstances, particularly given the fact that we don't know if another earthquake or another aftershock may arise?
Undoubtedly, right now the situation is very volatile. It is very vulnerable. But I mean, this is the human spirit. We rally to help and assist one another. Although the situation is quite risky, it's quite dangerous because of the aftershocks. And of course, yes, let me also mention this, that scientists right now are trying to grapple with this unique phenomenon, that you get two major earthquakes in the same area within a span of 12 hours. This is something which is really unique, which we haven't heard in history. It's unprecedented. We don't have actual records to say that, yes, two earthquakes have happened in the span of 12 hours in the very same area. So there are so many different dynamics to this entire disaster. One is just completely baffled and taken aback by what we're seeing playing out right now.
It's probably, one of the reasons that President Erdogan has declared, a state of emergency in 10 provinces. That just probably speaks to the magnitude of it all. Having worked in several countries in natural disasters as this one, how much does it help to declare state of emergencies for countries? How speedily does it open up, rescue efforts, etc.?
So generally, we must understand that the people of Turkey, the Turkish nation, they are very resilient in nature. They're very smart. They're really, really well organized, and especially when it comes to humanitarian efforts, they are really beefed up. In fact, in 2018, we attended a training session for search and rescue in Turkey, and they were actually predicting that they would see a disaster of this magnitude, but they did not expect it to be of such a greater magnitude than what they're experiencing right now. So yes, they had no other option but to declare this international emergency, to ask the world to come and assist, because such a large area has been affected and so many thousand people are affected. Just try to fathom and understand, contemplate, over 6,000 buildings have collapsed. Over 6,000 buildings have crumbled. That should give us an indication as to how severe and dire the situation is on the ground. We're hearing reports of over 5,000 people that have passed on. This is a very conservative figure. Trust me, as the days go by and as the hours pass, that is going to rise monumentally. It's going to rise to exorbitant figures. And that's going to be the way going forward. This is epic. This is on another different scale. A large area, the magnitude of area which has been affected is something which we cannot even understand. And the thousands of people, and remember, This was already a troubled zone. This was a troubled zone already. Forget about Turkey. Let's also analyze and focus a bit on Syria. Right now, certain rescue teams haven't even had the opportunity or the chance to get into Syria because of the security challenges, knowing that that is a war zone. So can you understand the various dynamics? And of course, yes, in the next few days, they're expecting snowfall. They're predicting snowfall. So we have a huge humanitarian catastrophe at hand, which we are dealing with right now. Hence, Turkey had to declare this as an international emergency to make it easy to facilitate much needed relief aid, to make it much more easier to filter in certain rescue teams to do what they need to do.
Qari Ziyaad, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Of course, Qari Ziyaad Patel is from the South African humanitarian organization Al-Imdaad Foundation, of course, speaking to us there about this disaster.